Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, it has been an interesting day for me dealing with a lot of technical issues. And the cherry on top of all of this is some Wolfman news, but not the most positive Wolfman news. We got a little bit in there, but yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Blumhouse, Universal have gone ahead and delayed Lee Whannell's The Wolfman until January 17th of 2025. This is not the end of the world. This is not even all that big of a deal because, as we know, this isn't the only hot ticket item that was slated to release this October and on the exact same day. And that other item was, of course, Terrifier 3. And I mean, the hype behind Terrifier, the hype behind Art the Clown, Damien Leone, all of those people who are slaving away on that film as we speak, it's just too big. It is too serious and too real. But is that the reason that they moved the Wolfman? Luke, what are your thoughts on this?
No, not at all.
No.
Just to keep it simple, I think you're dealing with horror fans, and horror fans, especially when you get in that Terrifier universe, they're gonna make time to see Art the Clown, and they're gonna make time to see the Wolfman. So
Mm-hmm.
I think
We were.
yeah, absolutely, and I think a lot of people were in that same boat. So I think regardless of if they were going to come out on the same day, well, hey, we're all taking the day off work and we're spending time at the theater is pretty much how it's going to go. We're not going to bend on that aspect of it. So, no, I don't think that had any effect whatsoever on this. I think, thinking of when the Wolfman was going to start shooting and when its release date was, the operative word was going to be ambitious, because that was a pretty quick turnaround. And to get something quality like that was going to be, with Blumhouse and their track record lately, I think it was something where maybe they got a little nervous in terms of maybe let's re-rack and pace ourselves here. So I think more so it was a timing issue in terms of that quick turnaround to get something out. And it was more so, let's put a pause on this. Let's add a few months to this, which for me, I would not be surprised to see this get pushed back even farther.
Ooh, really? Because I think this is enough time. I think I agree with you. I know this isn't the first time that we've even said this. I think when we last spoke about the Wolfman, which was just on our live stream this past Monday, actually, we had mentioned, and I think the whole sentiment amongst all of us was that this was a pretty ambitious, strategy. Like they're just going to really pump this thing out and get it out there in October, which I mean, yeah, that's a really wonderful time to get a Wolfman film out. I mean, October, it's the Halloween season, you say less. But I mean, yeah, the turnaround on that is quite quick. And I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, well, that's, 6, 7 months away." It's, when we're talking about a film like The Wolfman, which say they're going to use, probably, hopefully, a lot of practical effects for that creature. There's time that needs to go in that to design everything, but also the amount of CG that's still going to need to be used, knowing Blumhouse, knowing Universal, to clean up some of that stuff. Like, I think this is probably the best call. And considering we had just gotten some casting news here this week, and, it's one of those things where it's like they're still putting this team together and they're shooting. I don't know. Something is kind of pointing to me that, this is for better than worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's where I think where it's, let's stand back here, let's pace ourselves and not rush things. Because like we said, to kick off 2024, we've had Night Swim, we've now had Imaginary, not the best track record for Blumhouse. So I think it's a smart play to kind of pace yourself, look at this, and I think you could get a film out by January, but is it going to be the best it could absolutely be? Once you miss that October window, is there necessarily a rush for these things? Where it's like, a lot of people want to get those horror properties out for the month of October because everyone's in that kind of Halloween spirit and wants to go see a scary movie. And then we kind of deal with, now we don't, But some people deal with horror fatigue, where it's like, okay, we've ran
What?
through. Yeah, exactly, right. It's not in our wheelhouse, but it's like we go through the month of October, we watch all the horror movies on TV, we go to the theater, we watch them, and now it's we're in the Christmas season, we're on the holidays, and then of course we're now really deep into winter. So is January the best release date for this? I don't know. Maybe it's up for debate, I think. But, at that point, if you miss the window of October, what's really the rush? I say with this one, I lived through with the internet with the Wolfman in 2010. And how many delays did that thing get? So, with this one, I say, you can be ambitious and you can, target in on that January window, but I could easily see that being getting pushed and saying, what is the best release date to get all the eyes on the Wolfman?
I agree. And, honestly, you're right in the sense that it could get delayed a little bit further. I now sitting on it, thinking about it, that would happen if the movie was like a smash success. If they had test screenings and they were testing through the roof and they wanted to give it a more primed spot, I could easily see this thing being a March release. In fact, I don't know why, but that just sounds better to me to put this thing in March. We've had a lot of really solid springtime, late March, early April releases over the last few years that the Wolfman just would feel proper there. But yeah, as far as January goes, I'm not complaining. It's my birthday month. I'm always down for some good werewolf content, but just the fact that they've decided not to rush this thing is, I'm going to take it as a positive. I'm not going to take it as a negative. Uh, you know, Julia Gardner. Now, we did mention there was some casting news, and she has been cast in the film. They don't specifically specify what her role is going to be in this, but if you guys have seen her on things like Ozark, she was also recently, I want to say she was in a film. It's escaping my mind at the moment, but she's somebody that I remember from Ozark, and I absolutely adored. I really like that show, so she's got some good acting chops on her. I think her and Christopher Abbott so far, really good, really solid picks as far as building a unique cast here of not top tier A-listers by any means, but interesting character actors.
Yeah, I think, you're casting people that can do the work, that can really
Mhm.
get in there and add some teeth, so to speak, to the Wolfman in the evolving cast, So, I'm really excited about the casting news. As soon as Christopher Abbott popped up, I said, that's a perfect choice. I think, a lot of his work in the horror realm, he knocks it out of the park, and it'll be interesting to see his take. So with Lee Wanell, I absolutely trust the vision. He's the only one that was able to hit a Universal monster right now out of the park, I think, with Invisible Man. So tackling the Wolfman, he's steering the ship. I think whatever he says goes, and he's going to have a clear vision here. We talked about it on our live stream. I'm intrigued to see what his vision's going to be, what he's going to do, because I think it could be a lot of fun. So, I'm not worried in the slightest that this was pushed back. Again, hey, it makes it a little more convenient for us because then we get to just watch Art the Clown and dish out some mayhem for to kick off the holiday season, so and wrap up the Halloween season. So I think that'll be a nice kind of being able for us to pace ourselves and kind of just live in the moment rather than going to see the Wolfman and then going to see Terrifier 3. So it'll be nice to just be able to focus on one horror property that day.
I agree. And, as convenient as that is for us, I think that would have been a really fun day. I think we might have been having a sort of a repeat of Terrifier 2 where we did that in Hellraiser, where we were
Hey, I'm
up
putting
till
on
like 3 in the
Now
morning.
now that I've carved out a window here, I'm putting on Terrifier 2 100% right
Oh,
before Terrifier
absolutely.
3.
I was going to be watching it all leading all the way up. And, we're going to be talking about those films right before Terrifier 3 comes out. But yeah, I think honestly, though, too, we can't sit here and totally ignore the fact that, Terrifier has kind of carved itself out a major section in the horror community here. I think maybe, and just to kind of stoke the flames of the drama here and really get this going, because I think, and my cynical heart wants to say that maybe Blumhouse wised up a little bit and said, okay, maybe we don't want to compare with everybody's new favorite slasher, or maybe compete, I should say, on that day when we have a Universal Monsters property that, since Invisible Man coming out in 2020, has yet again found itself in a spot where it really needs to prove itself. I think maybe pushing themselves away from Art the Clown, just the mega force that he's become. I think that was a very smart move. So even though I think we might disagree on that fact, I'm going to firmly say that I think that Terrifier 3 did play at least a small factor in why this film moved as well.
For me, I already said it at the beginning. I don't think it did. I think, if this was moved at a different week in October, certainly, but I think, there is more work to be done on this film. It's got to have those polished edges. And, make sure this is a pillar in the horror community in terms of the Wolfman being kind of one of those founding fathers in a sense. And I think, especially with the strikes you've had in the Universal Monsters camp, you really want to make sure that you're handling this one with as much integrity as possible. So adding in extra months, I think, instead of just rushing this one out, is an absolute smart play. But who knows? Maybe Art the Clown had his axe and ran up to Blumhouse and said, "Hey, you move that release date before I cut off the Wolfman's face."
Absolutely. And that's going to be in the thumbnail. So yeah, guys, let us know what you think of this news. Are you a little bit disappointed that we won't be doing the Wolfman Terrifier double feature? Or are you kind of like Luke and I, where you're a little bit relieved that it's like, okay, we can just celebrate Terrifier in October, and then we'll celebrate Wolfman in January. But yeah, let us know. Do you guys also think that Art the Clown played a bigger role in moving this film? Or was it just strictly timing and, the smarter play by the studio? I don't know. Only time will tell, I guess, is the best way to put it. But until next time, I'm Dylan Knoll.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, slash ass. 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 Splattercast, slash ass.